Hey everyone, Mike Double V Cards coming back at you with another YouTube video. This time around I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm usually on here talking about, change the light, talking about, my collection, a lot of pickups from my Mitch Marner collection in particular. Today I decided to do something a little bit different. As some of you may know from watching my previous YouTube videos, I did initiate an order from COMC towards the end of January. I do finally in last week, which would have been, say, third week of April, fourth week of April. COMC did ship my cards. I have not received them yet. They have arrived at their location, but I have yet to receive them. But this video is all about my COMC order, but it's not a pickup video. So got a little bit of a presentation to go through. A lot of people might be curious about, their processing and run times and things like that. But so let's get her started. That is my 2026 COMC order. Example of some of the cards that I've got picked up. So first off, I'll go through a little bit of my order summary, exactly what I ordered, and some highlights of that order therein. Highlight some of COMC's processing. At least from my perspective, I have no inside information as to the goings on at COMC. I haven't contacted anyone there. I haven't spoken with anyone there. This is just information I've gathered from checking out my shipment every day, checking the progress, etc., to see where the order's been at. I'll do a little bit of a deeper dive into the numbers about my order and previous orders and how it compares. And then sure everybody knows by now there's some changes that were announced at COMC second week of March or so, and what that may or may not have had an impact on my order or not. So we'll start off with a summary. So as you can see here, the date I requested it was January 18th. And the original estimated ship date was April the 6th. And if you're wondering how busy COMC is at this point in time, or at least the last 3 months, there were 955,900 orders, almost 956,000, which is damn close to 1 million orders. So even if they average only one card an order, which it won't be the case, they're still pulling 1 million cards over 3 months. So even if you're talking about even at an average of 5, they're close to pulling 5 million cards over that 3-month period, which is crazy if you think about it, and it is a manual process, so it does take some time. So I have 401 cards in this order in particular. I do have a few collections, so most of the cards here are from my Mitch Marner collection, 349. My personal collection, which is originally O-Pee-Chee flagship sets and Upper Deck flagship sets. O-Pee-Chee, I had them all at one point from 68 to 2022. And then the Upper Deck sets from 1990 straight through to 2022 as well, and that would be base and Young Guns. So both of those are flagship. Now I've turned that PC into basically, if there's sets or inserts or whatever that I particularly like, I'll go ahead and pick those up and add them to my my set collection, if you will. So there you see there's 48 Young Guns renewed with the artwork on the back. It's 48 because those are all Series 1, and the other 2 I picked up on eBay, which I found a little bit cheaper than COMC, were the Ovi and the Crosby for that. And there is one Tim Hortons card insert in there, which if you're up in Canada, a lot of people collect those guys. I've actually stopped just in this past year. But anyways, so then the Gretzky collection is restricted to cards from him breaking Phil Esposito's single season goal record. Espo's record was 76. Gretzky beat it with a hat trick on that day, February 24th, 1982. That was a game. That was my first NHL game that I attended. So there's 2 cards coming from there. And I started a collection also of rookie cards from Hockey Hall of Fame players, first overall picks, 1,000 point players, or Calder Trophy winners. There's actually only one from that. So that gives me a total of 401 to give you a highlight of what's in the collection. So I'm not breaking the bank here. I'm not going to go through exactly everything I spent for this, for the order, but the most expensive card, it's actually part of the icons at the bottom right corner. There's 2023-24 Skybox Metal Universe Noise Boys. And these right now, all these are all in US dollars. There is one slide where I convert to Canadian, but for the purposes of this, everything's in US dollars. So, $41 for that Noise Boys US, which is pretty good. And since I have the advanced trader account or whatever you call it, as opposed to the simplified account, you can pay as little as a penny a card if you're picking up cards from COMC, and total cards over $10. I only had 10 of them, so not breaking the bank. And I find COMC is good for picking up these type of base cards, especially if you're a player collector and you do want those base cards in particular. So processing at COMC. So any of you that have used Check Out My Cards, you can go as often as you want and check out your shipment status. So as I mentioned at the beginning, when I ordered it January 18th, there was close to 956,000 orders ahead of me, not knowing how many cards are in each of those orders. I just knew there was close to 1 million orders ahead of me. So the expected date like I said, I was given was the 6th, and this actually tracks the expected order date. So in order to get this information, I basically went into my COMC account somewhere between 10 p.m. and midnight on the day of, and I would look at, it would give you how many orders are ahead of you and what the expected delivery date is. So I did that every day basically for 3.5 months to collect all this information. And again, like I said, no idea what's going on at COMC. Haven't talked to anyone at COMC. This is just from my perspective, from my account on my website. So as you can see, they're probably not tracking too much for the first month. And that might come down to, they might start adjusting this automatically as, like I expect it's a calculation. I don't expect it's somebody, fiddling around with, we've done this many today, let's change everybody's due dates, etc. No, this will be all automated in the background. And it probably doesn't track anything until you're about 2 months away from your expected order date, is my expectation and my presumption. So as you can see, it actually wasn't too bad at the beginning. The first jump after about a month in, it jumped to the expected date. It jumped to about a week, from the 6th to the 12th, and then kind of ups and downs. And the last time the date was still at April 12th was around the end of March. And then from there, as it gets closer to the delivery date, you can see how the expected date, basically jumped another close to 2 weeks, closer to 10 days. So the blue bars behind is an idea of is basically how many orders were ahead of me on that given day. So what the red line does here is identify. I was trying to recognize some patterns, if there was any on a given day. So like I said, this is the daily information. You can see there's a few spikes here on particularly busier days where they were pulling cards in the, pulling orders rather in the $30,000 to $40,000 range, which is actually, quite a bit. And then you can obviously see here there's a big anomaly. Somehow in February there, I have to assume that it's a records error as opposed to other people getting in front of my order in particular. But like I said, I have no idea how COMC checks their orders, or one thing I guess I forgot to mention is that I did a bulk order here. So I didn't pay for any faster processing times or whatever. Right. So I don't know if other people that come in after me that requested a more rapid shipping time, if those get added into the queue and potentially get me bumped as a bulk order, or if there's a separate, say, line or status or tracking at COMC. Again, no idea. So I'm making the assumption here that there was some sort of error in the records, and when it came into the first day of the week in February, there they went, oh, we said we shipped too many, so we'll go from there. So, like I said, I was seeing if I can track anything on a daily basis. Doesn't really turn out that way. So a little bit more appropriate to have a look at orders processed on a weekly basis. This is something a little more consumable, if you will. So you can see quite a bit of variability there. From, again, I won't include that 16,000. We'll correct that in the next slide. But anywhere from 35,500 up to close to 89,000 there in that second week of February. So it gives you an idea. Weekly average, 67,500. Again, just me looking at order processing and what I was actually seeing from my dashboard on COMC. So you look at that 67,000. If you're including weekends, that averages to a little under 10,000 orders a day. If you actually take that, if you take out Saturday and Sunday, because most Sundays was like there was zero processing on Sundays, which I'm actually happy to see. And then Saturday's volumes were actually a little lower than most. So if you take this over a work week, that's 5 days. It's close to 13,000 orders processed daily, which is pretty good. So as I mentioned, there's probably an anomaly there. So I adjusted the February 2nd and February 9th bars there to be maybe a little bit more representative of a reality, again, as I'm surmising. But again, it didn't change the average, just shifted some cards between the weeks to get a smoother graph, and I'll come back to that a little bit later. So by the numbers, so I showed you the estimated times, dates, etc. So those processing days from January 18th to April 6th were 78 days. The actual time was 95 days. It was shipped out with tracking USPS on the 23rd. So a difference of 17 days or 2.5 weeks, or a total of a little over 3 months to process the whole order. If I were to compare that to my previous orders, this is the fourth order I've had at COMC. Going back to February 2020, they don't like the P word and the C word on YouTube, apparently. So global shutdown, I had 44 cards. I don't think a lot of people knew about it. Were familiar with COMC back in 2020. They'd been around a couple years by then. They wouldn't have the volume of cards that they have now. And like I said, I don't think they had a lot of people that were too familiar with them at that point in time. So processing time, 9 days, nice and quick. And then 2021, year into the global shutdown. I honestly can't remember what social distancing aspects and things were going on at that time, but I'm pretty sure we were probably into phase 2 of shutdowns again after things opened up for a bit. So only 15 cards. It took 127 days. So you're looking at 4 months and thereabouts, a little over 4 months to get that info. Again, I did another order in August of 2024, 140 cards on 139, processing month, so it's pretty good. And again, well out of the global shutdown, and then, as I've talked about, the most recent. So again, fairly manual process for what they're doing. They're taking cards in. It's all physical cards, and you're going from there. So now we get into some of the hardcore numbers and talking dollars. A lot of people complain about the shipping costs at COMC. Here's a breakdown of how they actually do things. And this was the cost in US dollars and Canadian dollars. So the per card fee, because I have that trading account or the advanced trading account or whatever you want to call it, It's $25 a card at 401 cards was on $125 US. I went through the cost before of how much I've actually been paying for cards, so I find COMC is usually the best place to find cheap cards or inexpensive cards, and usually find them cheaper for the most part than you can find them on eBay. Plus, you're not shipping every card individually; you are doing a bulk shipping. Um, so there were 5 cards that there was a couple autographs, and then the Noise Boys, and I think 2 others that were good enough quality that I wanted them sent in top loaders explicitly, so they're 50 cents top loader, big deal. And then the actual shipping costs of $28.74 for a total of $131.49. That breaks down to 33 cents a card, which is really not that bad. And when I did process this order back in mid-January, exchange rate in Canada was $1.39. So in total, $183 total shipping in Canadian dollars. Again, total shipping per card is under 50 cents. So all in all, not horrible. And especially if you're buying cards for 4, 5, 6 cents, base cards or parallels or what have you, you're still paying 75 cents or less, or between 75 cents and $1 for cards. So not terrible. Again, I did a breakdown of my previous orders on what the cost looked like from a shipping perspective. The first order I didn't actually have, I still had the basic account, but bulk shipping at that point in time was $5, so dirt cheap. And to keep everything, ceteris paribus, keep everything equal, all other things equal, I, as you saw in the previous slide, I ignored any, tariffs, customs, any of that type of stuff, to get rid of some of the noise in the costs. Those rules and laws have been changing quite a bit over the last 4 years, so decided to keep those out of the analysis. And for those of us that are in Canada, it may not be insignificant cost depending on what those are. But yeah, as you see here, between $5, $10, and $40 to get those previous orders sent. The only one I'll highlight is the one from 2021, where I did spend 65 cents a card. The shipping went up a little bit, but I only had 15 cards at home. So it's better to certainly increase the number of cards in your order, so you're maxing your building in your economies of scale and reducing your dollars per card, or shipping costs per card. So now on to the changes at COMC. I won't go to the website. I'll just give you the highlights of what they talked about. If you haven't heard about this, you've probably been living under a rock, because I know there's been a bunch of other podcasts and things that talked about it. But anyways, on March 12th, they announced some changes and improvements to your experience at COMC. So the first one, customer service, that is really about communication. And I'll handle each one of these in turn on impacts to my order or not, and what it might mean for the future, for future orders. So again, customer service, faster, clearer, more proactive. It's all about communication, customer service, being responsive, etc. Operations, more results, smarter execution. This specifically talked about execution of physical cards and delivery, etc., pulling cards and trying to get orders to the consumer, to the collector, faster. Certainly, probably the biggest complaint, or one of the biggest complaints from people, is the time it took. And I walked through that previously, and this was a little over 3 months to get my order. Anyways, the extended grading SLAs, basically, in order to improve on the previous 2 that I talked about, they basically shut down grading. For any of the cards that are there, I think they had to deal with PSA and maybe a couple other graders where they could actually send the cards from there for grading and then have them shipped back to COMC. And then you can go from there. And then the other change was the handling fee. So you heard me mention before, shipping and handling fee of 25 cents a card. They've actually increased that, as well as shipping and handling of graded cards and the cost of top loaders. Now that says 45 cents. I was charged 50 cents, a difference of a nickel, whatever. But basically, they've doubled their price across the board. And again, I can go into some conjecture here. This almost feels like similar to what PSA has done recently in order to potentially quell any requests for grading. They've increased their prices, hoping it would decrease the volume of the cards they received. And my gut says this one would be addressing, say, the most egregious problem in actual processing, but it's, and hopefully less people would request shipping if they've increased the shipping fee, so they can actually essentially fix their backlog. So to me, that sounds a lot like PSA and their grading, what they've done over the last couple of years and increasing their prices on things. So what does that actually mean, or what did that actually mean for my order, since I ordered at a time before this was announced and everything was delivered to me afterwards? So this is the communication. This is clearly an automated communication. And again, I'm going to nitpick a little bit on this slide, but this is stuff that's really easy to fix. Hello, thank you for your purchase. Your order is being packaged and is expected to ship within so here you go. The order is being packaged and is expected to ship on with an expected shipping date of April 6th, 2026. It will mail the following address. I've taken that out. If the address is incorrect, blah, 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 contact these people. Okay, so first thing I noticed, I received this email on April the 6th with an estimated shipping date of April the 6th. Last time I could check, nobody had a time machine to go back in time to fix this, to be able to ship a day before the email came out. But anyways, I know this is an automatic email. It's really simple to fix the English on that. It's not hard. And then pulling a different date, that's the expected ship date. By that point in time, you'll see by that point in time, my expected ship date. So here's where I got the day I got the email. There were still 175,600 orders ahead of me. And the expected ship date was April 17th. So easily enough, they could swap out the original expected ship date with the one they actually had estimated on my shipping history. And then the wording, it basically said expected to your order is being packaged. But if you actually check the order history, the shipment history, they've actually just started picking the cards. Again, simple wording just to be excruciatingly clear. I know a lot of the times automatic emails can cause confusion because they're not clear. This is an easy fix. And then when it came down to it, I never actually saw the status of checking and packing. So when they actually sent me the stuff, it went from picking right to shipped. So again, low-hanging fruit. And like I said, I'm being real nitpicky there. But that's something that easily can be fixed. And well, actually, I'll go back for a second here. The other thing too is I go back to here. I actually did try this. Well, forget I'm not in the live document. I'm in a presentation. Email subject line address correction. I actually did that. I hit reply, I put address correction, and I asked a question. Crickets. I got nothing. I'm like, how much extra would it cost if I shipped to this address? I understand there'd be extra cost because I want it shipped here, blah, blah, blah. Crickets. So again, this is something that I was expecting to get a response on. If they say they're actually doing, if they're actually trying to improve the communication, I didn't see it. But again, this is still, within a month or 6 weeks of them making that announcement. I know things can take time to implement, etc. But usually, when I was in the corporate world, you underpromise and overdeliver. And that way, you're not setting expectations too high and then not delivering on them. That's when people get pissed off. So readjusted this graph. So this is the adjusted weekly processing that I had on a previous slide. I adjusted the index on the side, or the axis on the left side, so you can see more of the information. So again, March 12th is when the announcement came out. That's what the red line represents. So I decided, well, let's have a look at the weekly average before and after they did the announcement, moving on to the processing time and what they're averaging. So again, I was hoping, or maybe even expecting, to see an increase in what their weekly average processing of various orders were. And again, I don't have insight into what they're doing. This is purely the numbers I'm seeing on my shipment history and what they're actually showing on their website. So explicitly from that, I'm seeing about a 5,000 order decrease in their productivity between pre and post announcement. And again, if I were to be really nitpicky, one thing I didn't talk about on the daily chart was that big spike at the end. You can go back and have a look at that. But on the final day of processing, it said they processed about 60,000 orders. Now, I know COMC will not be pulling orders sequentially, so I'm pulling this one, so then we're not going to start pulling the next one until that one's done. I know that's not the case. So I'm sure, I don't know how many dozens or maybe even hundreds of people they might have pulling orders. So my order was being picked for 3 weeks, maybe 4. I can't remember off the top of my head before it was shipped. So knowing that 60,000 orders processed on the final day when my order got shipped is probably not correct. Plus, it was also a shorter week, the week of April 12th, since I think it was Monday through Thursday. I think my order was shipped on Thursday last week. So it's not a full week, plus you have that skew at the end. So if I take that last week out, it's not good news, because the weekly average afterwards, you got 5 weeks there I'm showing now after their announcement. Doing quick math, that's about 7,500 orders lower afterwards. So again, was hoping that number would increase. Their commitment to processing, etc. I wasn't seeing it, in particular when it referred to my order. So cost-wise, as you remember, at the bottom left, I re-included the actual costs here. So if I were to have done my order after March 12th, this is what the cost would have looked like. So on a 401 card order, again, cost would double. So under the New World Order at COMC, $200 instead of $100. The top loaders are 50 cents each, so $5 instead of $2.50. There was no indication for that I noticed on a change in the price of the bulk shipping. So I've made an assumption that is going to remain the same. So instead of 131, I get a total of 234. Again, all hypothetical had I made this order after March 12th. So instead of an average shipping cost per card of being 33 cents, being 68 cents, which is an increase of 26 cents, total increase in cost of $103, which percentage-wise, 78% increase, so not quite the 100% increase that they've identified there, but that's all due to the bulk shipping. So, like I said, it's not insignificant, but if you're finding good enough deals on your cards, can still be a very useful resource. So this is 400 cards. I know I've kept buying on COMC since then. I don't know, I have at least 50 cards there again from there. But anyways, so that covers off my analysis and some of the detail. Obviously had, if you're working inside the company or talking to somebody inside the company, you can come out with the more of the whys as opposed to the whats. I think I've covered a lot of the whats and how much from a dollars perspective and processing perspective, but it's really difficult to find the whys other than, some conjecture on my part and making some assumptions, etc. on what may or may not be happening. So, social media, various platforms that I have. Just look for the logo of VV Cards with the puck and the cards behind it. You'll be able to find me, or search VV Cards, double V Cards, and you'll find me pretty much on any of these social sites. I mean, ones I didn't include there. I know I have an account on my card posts, collect, and there's a couple other ones I haven't included here, but eBay, so YouTube, Instagram, X, Facebook, eBay, COMC, Sport Lots, Trading Card Database. I am on all of them, plus a few more. So by all means, feel free to reach out and get a hold of me. That covers off pretty much all my presentation. Well, look at that. I skipped by all the fancy animations that I had all set up. But anyways, appreciate everyone. That's what you get when you use your scroll on the mouse as opposed to just clicking away. But anyways, I'm recording this on Monday. Hope to get this up by the end of the day. This is April 27th, and I am just northeast of Toronto. I will be attending the Toronto Expo on Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. I tend to avoid Saturday just because it's too crazy. And again, I'll be walking around, so look for me. Or if not, oh, look at that. I took myself right off the screen. There we go. Let's do this. This is a name tag I usually wear around, so it's got the big logo on it. I'll try and put it on there. If not, feel free to DM me on Instagram, etc. You can find me anywhere at the expo. I'll do my best to keep the phone out and looking for people. But anyways, that's all for now. This turned out to be a 32-minute presentation. I wasn't expecting it to be quite that long. But anyways, appreciate you watching, and I'll probably post some of these little clips in here on Instagram, etc. Thanks for watching. Feel free to comment below, ask me any questions, reach out on Instagram, and get a hold of me. Thank you.